So happy to have you all here. And you're here because you're curious about leadership. As Jill said, some of you may be new leaders. Some of you may be exploring just how to lead yourself as you navigate your career. And some of you may have small, medium, or large teams already, or about to have a small, medium, or larger team where you need to lead. Some of you may be leading your families. We all know that's a challenge too. It doesn't matter. I think and hope that the things that we explore today will be relevant to all of those kinds of situations, or maybe others that you're thinking of. Let me tell you just a touch about Amelia for those of you who have not yet had an experience working with us. The picture you see is of our two founders. We are a women-owned business. The organization started with an intent on coaching people who were navigating their careers. And quickly, we realized that clients and prospective clients were coming to us, not just for help navigating their careers or even looking for a new job, but also to manage issues around their life, however you may define the issues in your own life, around your health and well-being, and around leadership. And in our leadership coaching, we coach both individuals and teams. We coach individuals who come to us on their own, as well as individuals who coach because their organization has offered them coaching. Most of my coaching is in the leadership space. And of course, as you would imagine, it can quickly ebb into life and career coaching. We all know we have complicated stories. I come to coaching, and here's a picture of me for those of you who can't see me right now. I come to coaching after a very circuitous path. I started my career many years ago as an attorney. I was an in-house attorney at McDonald's Corporation. And I quickly left the legal department with the help of a mentor who suggested that I follow him into some business roles, which I did. And I ended up spending the bulk of my career there in marketing. After I left McDonald's, I worked in more marketing roles, both in nonprofit organizations and for-profit organizations. And I actually had an opportunity to start my own business, working in the space, helping organizations market to women and to moms. Eventually, I ended up coaching because I was ready to sort of work with people one-on-one and on teams to finesse their leadership skills. Honestly, something that was not offered to me when I was going through my own career, and I realized what a benefit it could have been. I think I'll pause for a second, and if anybody wants to type in the chat, what experience, if any, have you had with a coach? How many of you have ever worked with a coach, either professionally, i.e. through your business life, on your own, or maybe even a coach that you had on a sports team or as part of a band or an orchestra? How many people have had experience working with a coach? And Jill, if you can just let me know what people are saying, that would be great. Jill, are you seeing most people saying they have worked with a coach?
Not yet. Let's see. Oh, yep. We have one of Brooke's clients and of course, Betsy. Awesome. Yep. Elizabeth, we have a few people working with the coach.
Great, great. So if, as we go along, you have questions just about coaching in general, let me know. I have a belief system around coaching that the most important thing is the connection between the coach and the client, and working up front to help the client clarify their goals and priorities coming out of coaching, and then deciding how they're going to measure success along the way. And we can talk all about that as we move along today. And again, don't hesitate to ask questions. What we're going to do today is talk about what leadership qualities you admire in others, when and what you notice when people are not showing up as leaders for you. We're going to then ask everybody to take a few minutes to sort of consider, if I was successful as a leader, if I felt comfortable in my own shoes as a leader, what would that look like? We're going to explore personality types and the implications that our personalities, the way we naturally move about in the world, may affect our leadership and what we can do to practice acquiring other skills that may help us be better leaders in a variety of different environments and with different kinds of people. We'll talk about defining and adapting the leadership style. If we have time, we'll talk about improving communication and collaboration, and then we'll do wrap up and Q&A. We have a number of tools that I'd like to make available to all of you, and we probably will send those out via Jill in a follow-up email to you. But if I mention something along the way and you'd like more information about it, feel free to send me a quick email. My email is Betsy, B-E-T-S-Y, at alvcoaching.com. And I'm happy to support any of you on this phone call in any way that I can. Does anybody have any questions right now before we get started moving into our content? Jill, are you seeing any questions pop up?
Nope, we are good. Go ahead, take it away.
Okay, great. So defining leadership, wow. I mean, over the past year, we've seen all different kinds of leadership show up. We've seen some leadership that has failed and some that has succeeded. And during these incredibly difficult COVID days, I'm sure you've all had experiences noting what kinds of messaging and people are showing up for you that are having a positive impact on your ability to get your job done at work. Before we get into fully defining the leadership, I think it's important to pause and let you all consider, what would you like to achieve by participating in this webinar or workshop today? What is a leadership strength that you'd like to explore or practice or acquire? What is something you notice that you're doing that may not be working? These are the kinds of questions we ask our clients at the beginning of each session so that we can stay focused on our priorities. Does anybody want to share some of their thoughts about what that I asked a moment ago? What would you like to achieve? What are leadership skills you're interested in pursuing? And what isn't working or serving you right now? Jill, anything being shared in the chat?
Not yet.
Okay. I'm going to give you guys all another moment, because if you can really start to consider what a positive outcome from dedicating this time to participating in this workshop would be, it will most likely help you hone in and focus on the content that's most relevant to you.
All right, so we have a few more, or we have some now, Betsy. How to overcome imposter syndrome. Oh, yes. Interesting. Lori, I actually have a webinar coming up on that, imposter syndrome specifically. Communication, how to keep interest via Zoom. That's a good one.
Oh,
feedback.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, right. As we're on Zoom, right? Good.
Yeah.
Timely. Feedback, having confidence in myself. Yes. Share my knowledge with others. I want to come across less directive and show more confidence in my ability in leading others to excellence rather than directing them to do the thing. Ooh,
oh, that's great.
I love that.
Great.
How I can provide more clarity to direct reports when I receive very little at my level.
Oh, yeah. That's always a tough one. Yes. Great. So
Groups,
Jill,
presentations. Yep. These are all good.
These are fantastic, you guys. Thank you so much. And Jill, please collect all of these, because in the email that we send out tomorrow and follow up, if we don't get answers to any of these in the Q&A, I can certainly provide some ideas and resources in that email. But thank you, you guys. That's great. And I jotted down some notes. And Jill will share at the end when her imposter syndrome webinar is coming up. Jill speaks really, really well on that. So anybody, probably all of us suffer from that at some stage of the game, and certainly can impact our successful leadership. Okay, great. Thank you for doing that, everybody. So how would you like to level up your leadership? The first question I'll ask you to think about is, can you think of a time in the recent past, where someone has shown up in your life with leadership skills that really had a positive impact on you? Or perhaps the opposite. Have you been in a situation where someone showed up in a way that really made you or others around you take a step back, feel less motivated, etc.? So again, I'm going to ask you to pause for just a second. Think about those situations. What were some of the attributes that really, really showed up? And how did being around that person make you feel? While you're thinking, I'm going to share two stories of my own, just to let you know how I'm starting to think about some of these topics. The first was a situation in a recent role that I had where I had an amazing leader. What made her amazing? Well, a couple things. One, she was very welcoming. She made it clear to me that if I knew there was something I needed or wanted to discuss with her, she would make time on her busy calendar. As a result of that, I became very, very respectful of her time, knowing that she might interrupt something else in order to see me. We built trust in that way. When I was with her, I also noticed that she challenged me. If she felt there was more that I could think through, things that I hadn't yet considered, or a political situation that I might be stepping into of which I was not aware, she would challenge me. She would support me in that navigation. And finally, she would champion not just me, but the rest of the team, always making sure that we got the visibility we needed in order to thrive. My dedication to her was strong. On the flip side, in a role prior to that role, I had a boss who was a micromanager. Her most instant reaction to anything that any of us presented to her was to say, but blah, blah, blah. At Amelia, we coach around a yes and strategy, which is if someone comes to you and you don't think that they've fully fleshed out their idea or there's more, we say yes, and what else? What else is there? This person would say, no, let's do it this way, always ending with her idea. She also took credit for other people's work. Something amazing would happen, and then she would present it to the board of the organization on her own, as opposed to asking other people to present it. What was the impact of that? I stayed in that role for under a year. I knew there was no opportunity for growth, and frankly, it was pretty demoralizing. So those are some of my examples. Is there anyone on the call, Jill, who's can throw a couple other examples out that might be of interest to the rest of the group?
Can you repeat that question, Betsy?
Does anybody have another story or example of qualities that made someone around you demonstrate wonderful or less than average leadership? Okay, I'll go on if that's not the case. Definitely something you guys can consider. So, who are leaders? How do you define a leader? It's really not just about the title. Leadership can be defined in two primary ways. One is the title. Somebody's told they're going to be VP and you're a manager. Somebody's told they're going to be president and you're a VP. Those people appear to be leaders. They've been given a title and authority. They have a formal role within the organization. But the second category is based on the function the leader serves and the impact they have, both on others and on outcomes. In that case, we all have an opportunity to be a leader regardless of our title. So you may want to give a little thought to where you fit on that spectrum. We don't just have to be people managers or supervisors to be leaders. Second point, perception versus reality. A lot of people assume a mantle of leadership. They stand up really straight. They speak with authority. They're naturally good engaging with others. They come across as very smart. They come across as very organized. There are all kinds of leadership skills that may be, that you may notice in others. But in fact, leaders can be cultivated. We can all cultivate our own leadership, and we don't need to be perfect at it. We just need to be aware of the way we're behaving, the impact we have on others, and constantly curious about what skills we need to grow. At Amelia, we believe and we've seen that leaders can be cultivated by their combination of their own efforts and support from others around them. Give a little thought right now to within your life, within your support system, at your work. What are the resources you can tap into becoming a better and stronger leader? And how will you know if the changes that you're practicing are effective? So let's spend just a couple minutes brainstorming the qualities of a good leader. I threw a couple ideas out to you in the 2 stories that I shared. What are some things that you all have noticed makes a strong leader? And Jill, if you can help by reading the comments to me, that would be great. Don't be shy, folks. There's no right or wrong here. Definitely not.
Trust team,
Trust the team.
empathy,
Yep.
empathy, but also pragmatism, communication, compassion, follow-up.
Great.
Investing in team members' personal growth, approachability. Yeah.
Great. Great.
Communication, honesty. Yep.
Great. Great. Wonderful. And as you guys can imagine, the opposites of all those are probably things that leaders need to figure out how to navigate and avoid doing. And for all of us, we're human beings. Sometimes you find yourself not trusting somebody. Sometimes you find yourself being aggravated at someone's behavior. Sometimes you find yourself being short and not communicating in a way that you know they need you to communicate. We're human, as I said. We can't fix everything, but what we can do is become extremely aware of what we're doing, why we're doing it, what the triggers are, and then what behaviors we can practice to try to finesse and improve those behaviors. I'm going to share with you a fun list of qualities that many people define as kind of the base list of qualities, and you guys can look through this yourselves. But maybe jot down the top 3 that you see here that you really want to focus in on in the between now and the end of the year. Passion, integrity, communication skills, and we could do and have done whole webinars on what does that mean? Loyalty, self-awareness, self-management, empathy, social skills, decisiveness, empowerment. Many of these things you guys put in your chat. Charisma, transparency, being able to motivate, and just a sheer level of managerial competence. One thing I'd add to this list is being a really good listener, a patient and inquisitive listener. It's really interesting to think about which of these strengths for leadership you already have, and maybe just jot down the ones that are making you wonder if you couldn't improve them. You may be thinking about that for members of your team as well. And this is just a beginner list. So you guys may be coming up with all kinds of other attributes or strengths that you think are super, super important. Jot those down too. Those are all good notes as you continue to navigate your own path, leadership path. Great. Anybody want to bounce out maybe an idea or 2 of something that they're working on? For me, I'll get the ball rolling, and Jill will probably laugh in the background. But the strength that I'm trying to focus on is staying organized, so not to create havoc for others. That's not on this list. Anybody else want to throw an idea out? Okay, we'll keep going. So how does personality figure into leadership? I think some of you have probably had a chance to look at the ALV, Amelia leadership questionnaire that Jill distributed both via Eventbrite and via email a couple hours ago. If you have not, please feel free to do it. It's really fun. It was actually developed by one of our leadership coaches. And the primary two categories we defined a leadership personality type into for this assessment was the get shit done leader and the people first leader. How many of you, and Jill, you can launch the poll now, had a chance to take that assessment over the past 48 hours or even before? Jill, are you launching the poll?
Yep, it's
Great.
going.
Great, thanks. When I hear the words get shit done, there are certain people that I've worked with in my life and who I live with in my home, and I can picture their faces perfectly. I can picture those people hard at work with a to-do list. I can picture those people feeling amazing at the end of the day when they've checked things off. Those people, when I work with them, I need to take a deep breath and understand that what drives them is the desire to move through a to-do list effectively, smartly, efficiently towards goals that they need to accomplish at the end of the day. I know someone on this call who totally identifies with that. On the flip side, people first, which is a bit amorphous, to me feels more like other people I know who the first question they ask is, how are you doing? What made that project difficult for you? How are you going to navigate the next 2 weeks when your wife has a baby? Blah, blah, blah. Much more likely to be gathering information that helps them solve problems and get to successful conclusions. Now, you can imagine the opposite of the story I told a few minutes ago. If you're working with somebody like that, or if you are something like somebody like that, how does the person who's the get shit done person learn to work with you? Or how do you learn to work with them? How do you become super, super aware that the way you navigate and solve problems may not be the way they do it? And how can you pair together to get more and more effective in your communicating, in your expectations, etc.? Jill, how many people had a chance to take the Amelia assessment?
So we had almost a 50-50 split. We had
Okay.
about, yeah, just about 50-50.
Great. And if you guys just want to type in the chat, if you found yourself, if the results that you got, those of you who had the chance to take the assessment, if you found them to be pretty surprising, or that you were right on the spot with what you learned from taking that assessment. Just kind of fun to share. So this starts to be kind of about our personalities, what makes us most comfortable. And what's interesting as we think about this is self-awareness is key. How do we build self-awareness? Well, we can notice what makes us feel comfortable and uncomfortable, but we can also rely on measurement tools. At Amelia, we work with a lot of different measurement tools depending on how you and your coach decide to proceed. And many of you have probably used some of these measurement tools or others through your work. One of the things we encourage people to do is not only measure their own personality type and when they are most productive, but to work really closely with other members of the team. Because in fact, one of the things that's most important is integrating people's tendencies together to make sure that people are communicating clearly and getting along well. So we use a 360, we call it Elevate at Amelia. Elevate is actually our online leadership program, which supplements one-on-one coaching. We have this ALV leadership assessment, which hopefully the rest of you will take. We work with Hogan assessments. Hogan assessments are kind of like a personality inventory that help people understand when they are most likely to be productive and what are the things that hold them back, both in day-to-day as well as in times of great stress. And you can see some of these others that you may have been aware of: DISC, Discovery Insights, MBTI, and more. Which of these have you tried? And what is a way you might have applied the learnings? Does anybody want to share feedback in the chat? And even if it wasn't a 360 you did just for yourself, but maybe it's something you implemented for your team. What did you learn? Jill, any feedback?
Let's see. We have a question. Is there a better style of leader? I am more get shit done.
Yeah.
Does this hinder me?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked that. While
Yeah,
you guys
so
oh, go ahead, Jill.
Yep. So someone else says, I have done MBTI, but I preferred Facet 5, which I resonated more.
Oh, nice.
Than
Thank you.
MBTI. Yeah.
Great. Well, and anybody who wants to share their input on any assessments, let me know. I should have said, for the person who asked if there's a better style of leadership, I'd be willing to say there is not a better style of leadership. I would say each situation that you find yourself in may ask you to lean a little bit into style of leadership that is not as comfortable for you. And so the question, and often this comes up in coaching, is how do I do a better job when I'm asked to step up as a leader in a situation where I'm not very comfortable? But the first step is to be aware, you know what, being a get shit done leader right now may not be the best way for me to get to the result that I'm searching for. So this awareness of what is and is not working is the step one. I hope that answers your question. We could, go into great length on that. You can tell everybody that the kinds of questions that I'm talking about as we go through this content today tend to be the kinds of questions we use in coaching, which is not, did you do this? Did it work? What are you going to do next, etc. But more questions around, how did that work for you? What resources do you want to pull in to solve that problem? What might you do differently next time? Always trying to help the person with whom we are communicating consider better ways or different ways of doing things. So I'm very intentional in the way that I'm asking you all those questions. Okay, and if you guys have any questions regarding leadership, any kinds of assessments or recommendations to Amelia on something you think we should be aware of, again, don't hesitate to reach out to me via email. I'm going to move on. This is a really fun assessment, and I actually did it today. One of our coaches uses it quite a bit. You can find it on the website. It's called Colorworks.com, and it's I think it's a Canadian company, so it's French, C-O-L-O-U-R, Colorworks, one word.com. We don't have time today to get into all of this, but if you go online to their site and take their test, it takes honestly less than a minute. I think they ask you 4 questions and they give you a snapshot of your working style. So even if you don't have a budget to do other tests that may have a price that's too steep for you, you can go onto this site and you can see which of this combination of the color blocks is most likely to the way you behave. and feel comfortable in the way others on your team behave and feel comfortable. And then it'll take you to the next step, which is how do you work with people who are very different from you? So I'll just say that when I went through this, they ended up calling me a motivator. And they defined it that my value to the organization would be to relieve tension and promote people. My inner drive, I influence and inspire others to do their best work. Well, that's good for being a coach. I influence others with optimism, recognition, and status. My feelings are as important as my accomplishments, so I will take more time to relax. And finally, I try to be enthusiastic and cheerful with a bent towards creativity, trying to make others feel special and important. Does that always work? Not always. Sometimes I need to be aligned with people and say, we have due dates. This work is not satisfactory. I need to be able to be in a position to give very specific feedback. And even though I want others to feel special and important, I need to decide that that feedback is equally as important as that moment telling them they're great. So you guys may start seeing some of the, how I've been challenging myself to get over some of my natural traits when it's not as effective. I feel like I'm talking a lot. Does anyone want to throw in a question or a story or anything before we continue on? Very happy to hear what anyone has to say.
So we actually have a question. What's the, so I think the text and the blocks are hard to read.
Oh, sure.
So maybe some of these, since we got a little technological funkiness, maybe some of the smaller, we can send out this slide.
We definitely can.
Yeah,
and,
yeah, we can do that.
can,
Sorry about that, everyone. They
yeah,
can't read
I
it.
apologize
We'll
for
send
that.
this
Let me
out. We'll include it in the recap.
Yeah, and I'll tell you all what the big blocks are. Fiery red, and then under each appears like this, wants to be like this. Their primary focus is this. Likes you, i.e. when you're communicating with them to be like this. They fear something, can be irritated by something. Under pressure, they may go this direction, and their decisions are pragmatic. So just for fun, I like fiery red. Let's use that as an example. This person appears businesslike and functional. They want to be in control. Their primary focus is results. They like you to be brief. So if your boss is like this, and you tend to be a person who can put all information in a story, you may find that person tuning out. How are you going to get more concise with your communications to make it easy for them to hear what you have to say? This person may fear losing control. Yikes, the timeline is closing in on us. I'm gonna just go crazy if we don't get all this done by 5 o'clock tonight. You know people like that. It scares them. They can be irritated by inefficiency, indecision, and I would go so far as to say long-winded explanations like we talked about before. Under pressure, this person may dictate, and their decisions are likely to be pragmatic. So you can see there's a lot of pros in a fiery red personality style. There are also some things that could set this person back, just like in the get shit done explanation. So we'll share all this with all of you. It's really fun to think about and to do this exercise with your team. I'm gonna move on. So like people were asking before, what if I tend to be a get shit done person? Is that good? Is that bad? What if I'm a people first person? How is that impacting my team? At Amelia, we totally do not think there's a right or a wrong. We think there are situations that make certain behaviors better or worse. And we believe strongly that each and every person has the ability to build that self-awareness and make decisions about their behavior. That's how we think we can help people cultivate their own leadership. But it's fun to start exploring some leadership styles, and I hope you guys can read this. I'll go through a few, and there are many, many resources online defining different kinds of leadership styles, but it's fun to start thinking about which of these, and I'll define them briefly, is most like me, and which is most like the other people that I work with, or maybe the people to whom I report. So we'll start with transactional. A transactional leader tends to promote compliance via rewards and punishments. Punishments is a strong word, but consequences. A transformational leader inspires positive change in others. A servant leader, and I hear a lot of people saying they are aspiring to servant leadership, puts the needs of the team and others up front and is focused on helping others develop and perform. A democratic leader, they consider all members of the group should take a participatory role and encourage that among the people that are on their team. And on the flip side, an autocratic leader is most likely to keep taking full control, leaving little decision-making autonomy to the group. A bureaucratic leader is likely to follow formal sets of rules and procedures. We know people like that. A laissez-faire leader is most likely to say, or to show up, I can trust subordinates and the team, and I let them take the lead. I love a leader like that who says, you tell me when I need to know something is going on. You tell me when you need my support. I love that. Some of you may not be comfortable in that situation. And then a charismatic leader, their authority is typically derived from their charisma, their ability to make connections with people. While you're thinking about which leadership style describes you, I'm going to throw out another kind of leadership, and you see it at the bottom of our list here. It's called situational leadership. And this circles back to a question one of you asked not too long ago, which is, if you naturally align with one or more of these leadership styles, but you start to notice that sometimes you're not getting the attention of the people you need, you're not getting the results that are being expected of you or your team, etc. How do you assess the situation you're in and reach into your bank of skill sets to decide which one you need to take out and practice then? In situational leadership, the leadership is really a practice in which the leader has the ability to adapt their style of leading to suit the current work environment and or the needs of the team. Wow. Again, what resources do you have to tell you when you need to practice a different kind of leadership? Of course, I would be remiss in not saying that's a big part of coaching. And you can also just do research online and start reading and thinking, read Harvard Business Review, go to other websites and start exploring and testing yourself. Ask others around you to give you feedback on what is and is not working with your leadership style. If you decide coaching is for you, needless to say, we would love to support you. I'm going to skip communication and collaboration for right now. I promise we will have future workshops on this, but your ability to decide what needs to be communicated, figure out the best way to communicate it, even if it's via Zoom, which we're all super burnt out from. Be aware of how people with whom you're sharing information are understanding what's going on, and decide how to pivot if necessary to get to the bottom line is a huge, huge leadership capability. And needless to say, self-awareness, self-management, empathy, and social skills are a part of that decision. Also, for those of you who are just amazing strategic thinkers, your ability to hone in and finesse the key messages that you want to share with others is a huge skill, and people so appreciate when you're able to tighten up your communications. So let's wrap up. We're going to, I think what I'd like to do now is do a little bit of Q&A, in addition to anything else that you have asked me so far. And while you're listening to other people's questions, ask you to consider, is there a key takeaway that you want to make sure you keep in your hip pocket coming out of this session today? How might you practice putting something you learned today into action? And how fast can you practice it? Who will you ask to hold you accountable for a decision you make? And then how can I and/or Amelia support you as you move forward? So I'm going to open it up to conversation. I can certainly go back to some of the Q&A that you guys threw out earlier on, but Jill, if people are asking new questions or wanting more detail on anything I've brought up so far, would you toss that my way, please? I'll start with something that someone threw out in the notes a little while ago. The first thing was, one of the things I had in my notes was trusting the team. How do you find a way to trust others, whether it's to get their work done, to do their work well, to tell you more when you need to know it? How do you make yourself a safe, trusting leader, somebody that others can come to and say, this isn't working, this is what's really going on behind the scenes, these are the real limitations that we see? How do you do that? How do you build trust? This is a huge topic for coaching, for leaders at really all levels, and certainly for senior leaders. Anybody have any ideas that they want to throw our way? Jill, you seeing any chit chat?
So we have, how do you switch from different leadership styles between departments?
Oh, okay. Okay, we were still just talking about trust. Any chit chat on that?
Oh, I have no idea about building trust.
Okay, that's okay, guys. Give some thought to that. I will say that there are certain elements to trust, and we work a lot via a model called the trust equation, which I'm also glad to share with you. There are clearly, the quantitative measures. Do I show up on time? Do I do what I say I'm going to do on a timely basis? Do I deliver quality work? Am I meeting expectations? Then there are also more qualitative skills, which is, am I the kind of person people like to work with? When people share a confidence with me, do I keep that confidence, and can they count on that? And underscoring all of that is a self-orientation. People who are highly self-oriented, in other words, most of their actions are designed to make sure that they're safe, that they are succeeding, that they are moving forward, are less likely to be trustworthy partners as people who are able to lean into a little bit of an others orientation. So again, I can share the trust equation with you, and you can also Google it, but it's an interesting way to consider trust. I'll try to lean into the leadership styles. I'm assuming, based on the little blurb that Jill read, that an individual had a role in a specific department and was used to the way they operated, the way people engaged with each other, what the goals and objectives were, and then had the opportunity to move into a new area, which is wonderful, expanding your expertise, kind of going horizontal in terms of responsibility, and noticing that things are different, that some of the things that worked really well in the first role may not be working as well in the second role. My advice to you is to pause, slow down, try to observe what's going on within your new department, your new area. Who are the people who seem to have the most positive impact on others? How do they behave or navigate? What do they do a lot of? What do they hold them? What do they do less of, and really start to decide what's different between the two places where you were working. What would make it easier for you to succeed in that area? I think, it's really a process of gathering information.
Hey, Betsy, if you want to, if you're done presenting, there we go. Can see your face. I would also like to note, don't mean to interrupt. We have questions and we have 7 minutes left. So
Great.
you want to
great,
just
great.
wrap that up and then we can get to.
Yeah, guys, sorry. I hope I have not been too long-winded. Jill, do you want to read me maybe one more question since we have 7 minutes left?
Yeah, so we have, let's see. Did you want to address how do we switch from different leadership styles between departments?
I just did that.
Okay, good. Okay, got that one. So then we have, how do you work with a leader who does not want to see you succeed / trust you without it coming off as antagonistic? Ooh,
Yikes.
that's
Okay.
a tough one.
Yeah. So we've all had leaders who we are not well aligned with for any series of reasons. The first thing I would do, again, is pause and ask yourself, what might be driving this person's behavior? What might be going on with them? Whether you are going to come up with the right answer to that question or not remains to be seen. But what might I do differently to make it easier for that person to support me? What questions might I ask to demonstrate even more than I am already my loyalty to that person, or perhaps to the organization, the team, or the work that we're doing? In other words, try to get a little bit out of the sense that you are not being seen or heard, and imagine that you have the power to create positive influence on the other. Will that always work? No, it will not. And you may end up in a place where you have to ask to be transferred to a different department, or you need to find another ally, etc. And you can get super tactical about that too. But that person has a reason for the way they're behaving. And if there's anything you can do to make it easier for them to get along with you, I always recommend that that's the first sort of line of defense. Okay, guys, please, as I said, email me with further questions at betsy@alvcoaching.com. I want to make sure that everybody knows that at ALV, we have tons of webinars. We have tons of blog posts written by all of our coaches that are current and up to date. And you can just go into our alvcoaching.com website and search for any topic that you want. Our events are great on all of the topics that we coach around, which is health, life, career, and leadership. And last but not least, the way you can engage with an Amelia coach is to book a consult. Jill will share that with you, with one of our staff that helps make sure there's a good match between any prospective client and a coach. There's the bit.ly that would help you sign up. That opportunity to chat with one of the people in the office who does these interviews, it's complimentary. There's no cost to that. And they're all amazing people who you'll probably feel like you had a coaching session just from talking to them. They've been trained to ask really deep and interesting questions. If you meet with a coach, you then have a chance to meet with them. Some coaches give 20 or 30 minutes as a complimentary session. We all give 20 or 30 minutes, one or the other. And you all have an opportunity to decide if the person that you've been matched with is a good match for you. If for any reason it isn't, you'll go back to the team and they'll recommend a different coach. So we really encourage you all to do that and take advantage of both the free resources as well as the coaching that we have available. And again, don't hesitate to reach out to me. If I can't answer one of your questions, I'll share it with one of the other coaches on the team. we tend to be a pretty generous bunch. Thank you all for taking the time today. I hope everybody walked away with at least a little tidbit of something they want to practice as you move forward in your own leadership. Jill, am I forgetting anything?
No, you were awesome. You're great. I think we have, so to clarify a question that I did get, so the complimentary session that Betsy was talking about is a complimentary consult with one of our relationship strategists. So it's not a session, it's not a coaching session, but it is a consult to help you figure out who the best fit is for you and how we can really help you achieve your goals, whatever they might be. So just wanted to clarify that, but other than that, we'll be sharing resources and the recording in the recap email. And then I shared Betsy's email in the Slack or in the chat, but I'll also share that in the email as well, along with some other resources and ways to stay connected. And then, yeah, if you have any other questions, like Betsy said, feel free to reach out. You can also reply back to that email that goes to me. But yeah, got you covered on all bases. So any final words, Betsy?
No, thanks. And I'm just looking back as we're chatting about some of the other topics you guys would like to see. And Jill, I'm noting that there's a request for strategic thinking. And I'm happy to add that. So we'll just stay posted for future Ama La Vida webinars. And if you guys have more topics, send them our way.
We love topics. Yes. Any feedback. And you can also reply back or email Betsy. I'll have my email in there too, but if you want to reply back to that follow or that recap email with some ideas on even questions, even additional questions you guys have, but any topics, we love to hear from you, what you are looking for, what you are needing some guidance and support with, and we will definitely take note of that.
Awesome. Thanks, Jill. Thanks all.
Awesome.
Have a good week.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.